Did y'all see what happened today in court where Donald Trump is battling E. Jean Carroll? Now remember, he was found liable for sexually assaulting her, got awarded $5 million. His dumb ass then went out and started talking about more trash about her, so she sued him again. So they go to court. He acted a fool today to the point where he started arguing with the judge. Somebody said he was acting like Gator the crackhead from Jungle Fever. At one point, literally, the judge said he needed him to shut up. That when he was talking to his attorneys, he was talking so loud the jury could hear. So he acted a plumb fool. Now, this is the same person, 4 trials, indicted 91 times, who trashes everybody. He talks about everybody. He disses people who voted for Biden and Harris, trashes them left and right. His supporters call Democrats voters pedophiles. They advance Pizzagate. They do all of these different things. And then Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, does an interview with this morning with CNBC, live from Davos, which is like where all the billionaires get together. So it ain't like regular, ordinary people or out there amongst the resorts and, of course, all of the skiing and the fun they're doing out there. But I got to play for y'all what Dimon said, what we should not be doing when it comes to MAGA people. Watch these pearls being clutched.
How do you see the U.S. economy playing itself out over the next 12 months? This is an election year. We've been talking a lot about what just took place in Iowa and trying to understand how the American public is going to feel about the economy may ultimately dictate how the president is decided.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's a mistake to assume that everything's hunky-dory. And, you know, and when stock markets are up, it's kind of like this little drug we all feel. Like, it's just great, you know. But remember, we've had so much fiscal and monetary stimulation. So I'm a little more on the cautious side, that we are facing a lot of things in 24 or 25. And we mentioned Ukraine, the terrorist activity in Israel, the Red Sea, quantitative tightening, which I still question if we understand exactly how that works. I don't think we do. How QE actually worked, what the effect of negative, zero rates was for all this time. And obviously the politics, and and then the Ukrainian war is affecting oil, gas, food, migration. So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA. And if you travel this country. And the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. And if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO. Kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans. And
I agree.
It's done crazy.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Could we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. And I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
How do you see the U.S. economy?
Let me call bullshit what I see and hear bullshit. So allow me to unpack what you just heard from Jamie Dimon. First, Jamie Dimon goes on this whole spiel about, I don't know about this economy, and we gotta be careful about this economy. We got a lot of different things happening across the world, and just the stock market, and how fickle these things are. That's interesting. That's interesting. Go to my iPad. Go to my iPad. Here's a headline from November 29, 2023. Jamie Dimon says to be prepared for a recession. Here's an article from January 10th, 2024. Fortune magazine. Jamie Dimon skeptical about Goldilocks economy scenario. Then another story, Fox Business. Jamie Dimon, U.S. economy started to look more like the 1970s. But let me go to October 2022. Here's an article on CNBC. And look at that headline. This is serious. J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon warns U.S. likely to tip into recession in 6 to 9 months. The article is dated October 10th, 2022. Do I need to remind y'all what happened in late 2022? Goldman Sachs predicted we were going to go into recession. What happened in January 2023? Meta, Amazon, all of these companies start laying off people because all of these so-called really smart financial people were predicting we were going to go into recession. And what happened in October 2022, in November, and December, and January 2023, and February, and March, and April, and May, and June, and July, and August, and September, and October, November, they kept predicting we were going to go into a recession. What happened? We never went into a recession. They were shocked every month when the jobs report would come out. We've had, 36 consecutive months of job growth? They said, oh my God, inflation is killing us. America now has the lowest inflation of any major developed country. Inflation Reduction Act. Oh, who actually voted against that? Yep, Republicans did. They said this would do nothing to lower the inflation. So all of these great financial minds were saying how the economy was going to tank. And it didn't because of the smart actions of President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and largely Dems in the House and the Senate. So now all of a sudden we hear Jamie Dimon saying, oh my goodness, these worldwide things that are going on, Ukraine, Russian war, and gas prices. We've been dealing with that for the past year. I want y'all to listen again. Let me cue this up because Jamie Dimon said some things there that I thought were quite interesting, but it really also, it was tipping his hand because what Jamie Dimon was really saying was, oh my goodness, Trump was right about all these things. People don't care about family matters. And then you heard he said he was right about China, but not about those tariffs, which caused us to spend billions of dollars propping up largely white farmers in Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, because Trump's attacks on China tariffs were absolutely idiotic and it absolutely did nothing. Oh, this is the same Trump who had all of his products, his ties and belts and everything that were also made in China. The same guy who praises the Chinese dictator. This is the same guy. Oh, is that the same China that had a lot of patents for Ivanka Trump as well? Oh yeah, that's the exact same China. But listen a little bit more to Jamie Dimon, and I'm going to break this down further.
Have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, if you travel this country, and the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on, spoke.
We took our bus trip across the country. Jamie, what neighborhoods do you go to in your bus trip? How many MLK drives do you go to in your bus trip, Jamie Dimon? That's what I want to know. And what, you took it with CNBC? I know you didn't take it with a bunch of black people, because I know the neighborhoods and the people who I talk to when I give speeches and travel the country. I'm talking to black business owners. I'm talking to people on the ground. I doubt, Jamie, you have ever even seen any of these people. But I digress. Back to this.
And Boise and Bozeman, people are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them. That you.
Is that what we're doing? Now, y'all notice the businesses that he mentioned. Did y'all hear Jamie Dimon at any point say the people who are creating the businesses at a faster rate in the United States are black women? No. Did you hear him say that people of color have actually broken records 3 consecutive years under Biden-Harris for the creation of businesses in this country? He talked about innovation. All those things are happening. Guys, do me a favor. Get my interview from the Small Business, here, the Small Business Administration that we had at Operation Hope. Yeah, because she actually talked about exactly what has been happening with the economy in the last 3 years. See, Jamie, these are the people who can't afford to go to Davos. These are the people who can't afford to sit there and wear the cute parkas and actually do those things. In fact, before y'all get that together, pull the clip last night we used from Stephanie Ruhle when she talked about these guys on Wall Street and how they should be praising Biden and Harris, and they don't. Oh, yeah, I think she was talking about Jamie Dimon. But let me play a little bit more of what he had to say.
Or like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. If you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues. And
so I don't like how he said some things, but I sure love that tax reform. I sure love what he said about NATO. Is this the same guy who told Europe that if y'all are attacked, I will not defend you? Is that the NATO we're talking about, Jamie Dimon? This is the same guy who talked about, how he was right on some of the things, how he grew the economy. Please remind me, Jamie Dimon, who handed him a great economy? Last I checked, we had a housing crisis in 2007, 2008, because many of the banks that you know very well were giving subprime loans to black people, causing them to lose billions of dollars. 53% of black wealth was wiped out during the home foreclosure crisis. And guess what? Those banks are still in business. And what did banks like yours do? Sell those toxic assets to private equity. And that's why 40% of the homes in America will be owned by private equity by the year 2030. Is that a growing economy? And let me remind you how the unemployment rate skyrocketed in 2009, 2010, 2011, but we began to see the economy turn around in 12 and 13, 14, 15, and 16. Please tell me, Jamie Dimon, what the stock market was on the day of the inauguration when Obama handed Trump the keys to the economy. You can't sit here and tell me how great Trump was on the economy. That's like saying he was born, he actually hit the home run himself when his daddy set him up. No, he was born between third base and home plate. But you're saying these things to a business community who are largely conservative on CNBC. Here's also what he said.
That's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump.
That's a great point, Jamie. I'll ask you, what's your why? Why are you saying that we have to be respectful to MAGA when it was MAGA that tried to overthrow an election, when it was MAGA that actually beat cops? It was MAGA that was angry with how black people voted, and Trump targeted black people in 4 cities: Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Milwaukee. Oh, what are those 4 black cities? Is that who we should be respectful to? We should be respectful to a Jim Jordan and a Kevin McCarthy who refused a subpoena to testify before the January 6th committee? That's who we should be respectful to, huh? Oh, really? Is that what it is? No, I don't think so. Let me play the rest.
Why are you
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans.
I agree.
It's done quite well.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really, Like, could we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect, and I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Oh, so the negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign. Remember when Jamie Dimon asked for the why? Here's why Jamie Dimon is actually saying that. Because when he doesn't want you to criticize MAGA supporters, people who vote for Trump, because he knows there are a lot of people, possibly including him, who voted for Trump on Wall Street because they wanted those tax breaks. They didn't give a damn about the rest of the economy. They wanted the tax breaks. And it could be, this is who Stephanie Rule was talking about on MSNBC. Press play.
Because that Wall Street Republican, if you actually look at Joe Biden policies, they should be stoked about it, right? Look, I mean, we have a very strong economy given where we came from. Look at the infrastructure. Look at all that he's done. But why do they pull back? Because this idea that they have that he's super liberal, which he's not. And the reason they have this idea is because when they got into investment banking, when I did, those investment banks only recruited from 4 colleges, and they were Ivy League universities, and they didn't have any DEI initiatives. And they loved to hire lacrosse players and football players and sons of people that went to really expensive boarding schools. And that is why that group of Wall Street people think that Joe Biden is super liberal, because their son named Chad in a Patagonia vest isn't automatically getting into Princeton and gets to be in Eddie's class. That's why they feel that way.
They could probably still get it, though.
So Jamie Dimon wants us to sit here and support, say we should not be so mean to these MAGA people. Yet these are the people who, when after 10 black people were gunned down in a grocery store in Buffalo, when Democrats tried to pass a bill condemning white supremacy, guess who voted against it? All except one Republican. When Democrats wanted to get rid of neo-Nazis in our military, guess who was against that? MAGA. When Democrats said we want to get rid of these Confederate monuments named after these military bases, guess who was against that? MAGA. Guess who agrees to a poll of 81% with Donald Trump that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country? MAGA. We can go on and on, Jamie Dimon, but the reality is this here. You don't want to be associated with the crazies. So what you are saying is that Biden and the Democrats should be more respectful to MAGA. We should be more kind to them. We shouldn't call them deplorables. Are you speaking the same MAGA people who use critical race theory to target folks during the 2022 midterm elections and they were all lies? Are you talking about the same MAGA people who right now are against DEI, who are attacking HBCUs with aviation programs like Delaware State because racists like Elon Musk are suggesting that black people have lower IQs? Are those the MAGA people we should be lining up with, Jamie Dimon? No. What you're saying is, we don't want y'all dogging MAGA people who voted for Trump. And then they said they're not voting for Trump's family values. We know that because they're hypocrites. Because how could they be against immigrants when he married an immigrant? When his children are anchor babies? When his wife lied about her visa and how she got into the country? Oh, you know, Melania, the birther? Yeah, that's who we're talking about. But no. You don't want us calling them out. And they say it's hard to hate 75 million people. No, it's not. Not when those people are supporting an individual who is so demented, who is sick, who is a psycho, who literally wants to exact revenge against his enemies, but he could not take an ass kicking that he got in the last election. But we are supposed to somehow make them feel good because they're mad and they bring up the great replacement theory. And they love the likes of Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity and the other white nationalists on Fox News. Is that really what you want us to do, Jamie Dimon? And it's interesting. Jamie Dimon didn't talk about, what's happening with the economy. Consumer confidence increasing, the shrinking of the wealth gap between blacks and whites. You notice none of that stuff was mentioned. It was, no, we might be on the verge of recession. Why is Dimon saying that? Because the numbers are changing. Steve Ratner, Wall Street guy, former journalist, broke this thing down, showed this particular tweet today. Give me 1 second. And he showed exactly what is happening. Boom, here was a post that he made. U.S. total monthly business applications for likely employers. He said, we are in the midst of an economic boom. That's what Steve Ratner posted. Dimon did not mention that. Ratner talked about the post-pandemic surge. Look at this. Go to my iPad. 34% change in the United States in terms of annual business establishment entries. Belgium, 25%, France, 23%, Netherlands, 16%, UK, 16%, Canada, 10%, Sweden, 9%, Norway, 8%, Spain, 6%, Germany, 0.1%, Italy, minus 12%. So the United States, by far, is leading all other major countries when it comes to business entries. Oh, but the economy is doing so bad. No, we're not going to buy that one. And yes, I will call them deplorables. I will call them deranged, sick, psycho people. Because anybody who wants to vote for that man, even if they get nice, wonderful tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, Jamie, is out of their damn minds. Robert.
Look, one of the things I think that's important for us to understand about what Jamie Dimon said in particular is that it was factually inaccurate. If the world had followed Donald Trump's advice on NATO, he would have hollowed out the entire organization, and Russia would be in Moldova or Romania by now. What he said on China is completely inaccurate. In the last 2 years of the Biden administration, we've seen a 2 million person population decline in China, 5.1% growth, which was lowest in 30 years. We've seen economic scandals from Evergrande to the shipping crisis to the grain population. What he said about Donald Trump being right on the border. How the hell can you look at the border and say Donald Trump was right about that? We did not make the type of hemispheric agreements necessary to stop the migration crisis coming northward. We did not help the governments of Central and South America handle the narco-terrorism problem. We did not stop the American appetite for drugs, which is fueling all this migration in the first place. So the idea of saying stay in Mexico and building a wall, that's not an immigration process going forward. When you talk about this conceptualization of, well, I went to Spokane, Washington, I went to Bozeman, South Dakota, I went to Boise, Idaho, and I saw America. Well, there's a whole rest of America where the actual population lives at, and you're seeing innovation, but you're also seeing the need for programs that are not being centered and targeted at Wall Street. And what this is really about is Jamie Dimon believes that tax cuts are so important, he's willing to sell out the rest of the American people. As long as you can get $2 trillion in tax cuts from Donald Trump, you don't care what happens to the rest of us. And even on one of the first points he made, when he talked about quantitative tightening. So quantitative tightening is a fancy way of saying raising interest rates. When they talked about quantitative easing during the housing crisis, they said we made interest rates too low. Quantitative tightening is what Powell's been doing for the last 2 years, raising interest rates in order to fight inflation. This is exactly what Paul Volcker did in 1980 to break the backs of double-digit inflation. The reason we didn't fall into stagflation is because of the raises in interest rates. Who did that hurt? Major banks like Jamie Dimon's not being able to make money the way that they did before. So everything he said was with what he said unironically, with the richest people in the world behind him at a ski resort, is basically saying that all the efforts that have been made to help regular Americans and to build an economy that works for everyone else is the wrong thing to do. And let's not be mad at the MAGA people for supporting somebody who's called Latinos rapists and terrorists, who has said that he wants to bring retribution to the United States of America, who's called his enemies the vermin, who said that immigrants were poisoning the blood of our people. Don't be too mean to those people. But by all means, continue to bring these tax cuts. It's a completely ridiculous statement all the way through.
Joy?
Absolutely. I'm appalled at what Jamie Dimon said. Robert had it right. Donald Trump has been wrong on every one of those issues. Every one of those issues. And the fact of the matter is, they're not supporting him because of that anyway. They're supporting him because he said it. He is their retribution. Who calls them MAGA, Make America Great Again? They call themselves that. They call themselves that. We aren't disrespecting them. They are disrespecting our democracy. Appeasement is the greatest tool of a dictator. People who don't want to just acknowledge that there are racist people in this country. They are misogynist people in this country, and guess what? There are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. That white fear that Roland talks about so often is very real. It's very real. He won't acknowledge that because those are the people who look like him.
Rebecca?
If it were me, and if it were anyone here, they would do that.
Rebecca?
I get it, Jamie. You think that Donald Trump is crass and you think he's tacky. Because after all, anyone who buries their ex-wife on their golf course, they're kind of tacky. They're not exactly the top echelon in class. But here's the thing. 3 out of 4 white men are registered Republican. More than 3 out of 4 white men voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. Morning Joe had America convinced that the white people who were supporting Donald Trump were the hillbilly elegy. Well, just like that book was kind of fake, that narrative is also fake. And here's the reality. Overwhelmingly on Wall Street is run by white men. The majority of them support Donald Trump. 80% of pilots in this country are white men, like we learned last night. But guess what? 3 out of 4 of them likely to support Trump. Jamie doesn't want to be associated with the crassness of Trump. He doesn't want to be associated with the racist policies of Trump. But he just said, well, I don't like how Trump says it, but I agree with his policies. Trump's policies were rooted in racism. Many of his policies were anti-Black. So what Jamie is telling us is, hey, I don't like how tacky Donald Trump is, but hey, I sure love those racist policies because it benefits my bottom line. It puts money in my pocket. It keeps me and my friends billionaires.
And with saying that, it reminds me, I'm going to make this point before I go to break, it reminds me of old Jack Nicklaus. When Jack Nicklaus, the big-time major golf winner, when Jack Nicklaus endorsed Donald Trump. And when I listened to that, when I listened to all of that back and forth with Jamie Dimon, I immediately thought about Nicklaus's endorsement. And I'm looking for it now because I never forgot it, and because if I come across Nicklaus one day, I might cuss him out. Because what Dimon essentially was saying is what Nicklaus was saying is, can y'all just move on around it? All the hateful, misogynistic, sexist stuff, grabbing women by their vagina, how he would talk about and denigrate Black women and others, how he savages other people, how this man treats people, how this man, and this is what just trips me out. Because, see, I love these people who call themselves patriots, who call themselves loving Americans. When Donald Trump literally shitted on the dead soldiers when he was in Europe and would not even go to the cemetery to visit their graves because it was raining and it might mess up his hair. When he literally talked about those soldiers in such a nasty way, and that was confirmed by his then chief of staff, John Kelly, 4-star general. How this man has trashed and denigrated the late Senator John McCain, who was a POW in this country. It is amazing what these people will give up for their tax breaks. It's amazing what they will allow. They will allow the treatment of people, the negative treatment. This man here has said he is going to pardon every single person who was involved on January 6th, but we need to be more respectful to MAGA. We need to treat them better. We shouldn't call them deplorables. We shouldn't hurt their feelings, even though these people, as it stands right now, are doing the exact same thing to everybody else. These people, all that they are doing and how they trash people who don't agree with them, the things that they say about liberals and progressives and those who vote for Biden-Harris. But I didn't hear Jamie Dimon defend any of them. It was only the MAGA deplorables. That's because he knows it's a lot of people he knows who is his buddies who vote for Trump, and they don't want to be mixed in with the racists, but you are. Because when you align with the thug in chief, that's what you get.